Hello, everyone, and welcome back to many of you to What's New in Wagtail. And for any of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome to our webinar series. I'm Lisa and I organise our events at Torchbox. And today I am joined by Matthew, who will demo Universal Listings. Sage will show you model view set and Universal Listings for non-page models. And we have Ben joining us today to show us new UI features included in the latest release. And we have a few that we're thinking about for the future, and we're going to be getting you to vote on those later. We also have Thibaut talking about the exciting new email newsletter package. Tom Dyson will give an update on what's new with Wagtail AI, and Megan is going to give you an update on Wagtail Space. We are going to have some time for questions during the session and at the end. So if you can use the Q&A, it helps us to keep track of the ones that we've answered and the ones that we haven't. But we'd still love to hear your comments and feedback in the chat as well. And we are recording the session so that I can share it with you in a follow-up email afterwards. And I'll also share any of the links and resources that we reference. And I think that's about it. I'm going to hand over to Tom Dyson to kick things off today, who is going to take a look back over the past decade of Wagtail CMS.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everybody. Yeah, before we look forward into what's new, I just want to look backwards just quickly and to mark this important anniversary. We're slightly past the anniversary, but just over 10 years ago, in February 2014, we launched Wagtail. And some of you have been involved from early on, and you might know this story, but I'll just recap quickly. So it was created at Torchbox, the UK-based agency where a few of us work. And we'd been involved in open source for a while and worked on different content management systems. We made a lot of sites in Drupal, but we were making other kind of apps in Django. And we were really lucky that we had the support of one of our clients, the Royal College of Art, who are a very prestigious arts university in the UK. To build a new open source content management system for their own site. They had some particular focuses that they felt weren't being met by other open source CMSs. So with that support, we went ahead. We launched their site, and then soon afterwards, we went through the process of open sourcing it. There was a usual debate about the name. I think the top of the list for a while was Verdant, and that sort of greenness certainly came through in the early user interface, but never felt quite happy about Verdant. Or to me, it always sounded a bit like a combination of rodent and vermin. Anyway, just outside the offices where we're based, these sweet little birds that bob up and down from spring to autumn, fall. And they're called wagtails, and that's just seeing them out the window made us think of that. So that's the name that stuck. And we launched Wagtail. We open sourced it, in the hope that other people would find it useful, and certainly with the intention of continuing to work on it. But we hadn't expected that it would become so popular. And the kind of impact was quite immediate. Actually, I was meant to say we had a little launch party at the Royal College of Art who hosted us. We had some musicians playing music by Django Reinhardt, and lots of people came along and had a look. There's some faces that you might recognize of us, all looking 10 years younger than we are now, the original bright green interface. And that set the tone for a few in-person meetings later. Here's the original version of the README, where you can see some of that original user interface. I think maybe what's interesting is that it's still pretty familiar, and there've been a lot of very sort of small, thoughtful changes over the years. But I think it's still very recognizable, and I think maybe it's been a bit influential. Yeah, we've had a lot of in-person meetings. That was kind of that's something that I think was quite important, especially in the early days of Wagtail. This was a sprint that was hosted by Preikart Foundation in Cape Town. That was in the first year of Wagtail's existence, and shortly afterwards there was a sprint in Reykjavik, and there've been many others around the world, especially in the US and the UK. And we're also particularly grateful to our friends in the Netherlands, where Wagtail's been really popular, especially 4Digits, who've been really big supporters of Wagtail and hosted many events, including one coming up soon that we're going to hear about. I wrote a blog post last month with this slightly clickbaity strap line about was it worth it? And you don't, of course, I'd love you to read it, but of course, the answer is that it was worth it, not just for the technology and the tool, but also all the things we've learned and the relationships we've made. And it's been a wonderful 10 years. We're looking forward to the next 10 years. I really want to thank you all for being part of it, particularly the many contributors, 734, I think we're on now. And at the top of that list, Matthew Westcott, who is here with us today, who has steered this ship so well over the last 10 years. And I'm going to hand you over to Matthew to talk about what's new now.
Thanks very much, Tom. And yeah, it's been really a pleasure to be part of this and yeah, follow that journey and all of the progression over time to what Wagtail is today. So, yep, if I can share my screen, if I find the right tab, it always seems to jump around. Okay, so today I'll be talking about these updates to the listing views in Wagtail. Wagtail has always leaned quite heavily on the page tree structure as the way to get around the admin interface, and that works for many people, but it's not always a good fit, especially for large sites that perhaps organize their information in other ways like tagging and categorization. So starting in Wagtail 5.2, we set out to think about how to improve the user experience for those sites and move the focus a bit more towards searching and filtering. So the most immediately noticeable change is that the listing is now a lot more condensed. The lesser used actions like moving and copying pages are now found in this drop-down menu, which makes the remainder of the listings more easily scannable to find the pages that you're interested in. We also have a search interface that updates live as you type. So here I'm starting from the bread section, so it's just showing results from there, but I can switch that to search the whole site. So now you see there's a result from the blog section and there's a bit of extra signposting to show where that is in relation to the other results. Often we might not remember the page title specifically, so you might want to search for and find a page that you know someone was working on yesterday. So in Wagtail 6.0, there's various additional filter options. You can filter those by criteria, such as if we're looking for one that was edited by Nawar Al-Huda, and if that was updated sometime in the last 2 weeks from the start of the month, and then that gives you the ability to easily zero in on that particular page that we're interested in. And yeah, we can sort of update and select and remove these filters to look for exactly what we're interested in. Now, since this listing is still showing all page types, in this case, it's just the bread section, so it's all bread pages, but more generally, this can be all kinds of pages. So this does mean that one limitation here is that we can't filter on fields that are specific to one particular page type or display those as part of this listing. However, a new addition that's just coming in Wagtail 6.1, the next release in during a couple of months, is the ability to set up listing the view that's dedicated to one particular page type. So here I've set one up for bread pages, and we have this bread typed column, and I can filter on that just like I can filter the other criteria there. So if you've used the model admin module in previous Wagtail versions, that had something similar, but this new version, it's fully up to date with the new user interface with these filtering options, and this is available as a core part of Wagtail that fits in with the rest of these new designs. Also, on the subject of organizing your pages, we have a new report, which is page types. This was sponsored by Mozilla, and this is surfacing a bit of information that was previously a little bit buried. This allows you to see which of your page types are actively being used, especially on larger sites. Again, it's quite common for the page types that you're defined to sort of proliferate quite a lot, and you can lose track of which ones are in active use. But with this report, you can see that at a glance, and you can dig down into just seeing exactly what these pages are that are using each page type. So yeah, hopefully this should be a great help for maintaining your code base and keeping track of what exists on your site. And now, on that note, I will hand over to Sage to cover more of these listings elsewhere in Wagtail.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Sage. Continuing on the topic of universal listings, the new designs are not only available to pages, but also to snippets as well. So you can use the new interface for searching and for filtering as well. And any custom filters that have been previously added by your developers will automatically be incorporated into the new filters pop-up menu. So can do filters and clear it out. And some of you may recall our decision to remove model admin in favor of snippets. And since its deprecation in Wagtail 5.1, we have now completely removed model admin from Wagtail in Wagtail 6.0. And just a reminder, it's still available as an external Wagtail model admin package. And that being said, we understand that for some content types, it may not be fitting to call them snippets. For example, if you have a Django model like shopping cart orders, or maybe feedback submissions, etc., you may not want to register them as snippets. And for this reason, we are introducing model viewset as a more suitable replacement for model admin. And model viewset has been around for a while in Wagtail, but its features were quite limited. And in Wagtail 5.2, we brought the features like the inspect view, history view, and the other customization options to model viewset to hopefully make the transition from model admin even easier. We know that model admin was such a beloved feature in Wagtail, so the decision to remove it might be a bit surprising. However, moving away from model admin allowed us to bring new features like the universal listings to your custom models much faster. And another case in point is the addition of a copy feature in Wagtail 6.0. This allows you to copy an existing instance of your model directly from the admin. And now that model viewset and snippets share the same code, this feature is immediately available for both model viewset and snippets. So here I am on a model listing created using model viewset. So this is not a snippet. And the universal listing features like search and filters are still here. And now I have the option to copy my instances here. For example, I copy the Atlantis item. And if I just make some changes here, I can see that I have created a new instance with the rest of the data copied from the original instance. So with the removal of model admin in favor of model viewset, it is now much easier for us to maintain the code and add new features. So we believe that moving away from model admin was the right decision. And if you haven't been following the news around model admin, snippets, or model viewset, don't worry. Bottom line is you can keep using snippets for your smaller pieces of content. And for models that don't fit the concept of snippets, you can use Model View Set. And whichever you use, whether it's snippets or Model View Set, you'll automatically get these new features, and you can have most of the same customization options for both. And before I finish, just to give you a sneak peek, in the next release, we will be bringing the new universal listings to other listing views in the admin, such as the documents listing view and images. So this will hopefully give you a much improved universal experience within Wagtail. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Sage. Thanks, Matthew. I've got a couple of questions. I think we've just got time for me to put them forward. Are the report view designs going to stay different from the listings?
We are planning to update those listings with the new designs as well, but that will come after we are done with the other main listings first.
Okay. And are there other types of reports coming to Wagtail in the future?
So I think we have an incoming PR to add block types report in the future, but as always, these report views are completely customizable in the sense that you can add your own reports as well. So if you can come up with a new feature that you think would be useful for other people as well, you can also submit a PR to Wagtail so that everyone can benefit from that.
Thanks, Sage. I think we've got time for one more question. Are there features from Model Admin that still need to be added in Model View Set?
So the main features, I think, are already in Model View Set, but for more specific customizations like permissions, we are planning to bring a more unified configuration for permissions so that you can also customize the permissions of built-in models like documents and images and also pages. So stay tuned.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, we're going to move on to Ben.
Cool. Cheers, Tom. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm going to spend some time now just taking you through some of the design work we've got in progress. So these are some features that have had some traction recently, and we've been exploring some concepts and some ideas around some features. Hopefully they're exciting for you guys. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, at the end we'll have a bit of a vote to see, what people are most excited about. So I'm going to dive in. I've got these 4 areas to show you, and the first one is called Snug Mode. So when we redesigned the editor, we did a lot of work to make the whole form area much more scannable and easier to use. But there is still that need for people, and there's been a lot of kind of talk in the community and with users that a more compact view would also be useful for certain use cases. For example, if you're working on slightly more structured pages where there's lots of fields as opposed to like the more long form type content. So I've got this toggle here for Snug Mode. It wouldn't be a toggle. It would probably be more like an admin setting. But what we've started to do is explore some quick wins really for how we can actually develop a slightly new compact version of the interface. And so far, we've really just explored basic stuff like reducing some font sizes in some areas, reducing some margins, and maybe even using a slightly lighter weight in things like the icons. And it's really the starting point. Obviously, you can see here, it's feeling more compact. But I think what's interesting about this is the knock-on effects of doing this means we could maybe start to think about creating more space horizontally as well, which may lend well to a view where perhaps you might even be able to have 2 panels alongside you. So, for example, you might have your preview as well as your status panel open, particularly on wider screens. So we feel like that's an interesting thing to explore further. And then this would filter down to pages like the listings as well. So this is a slightly more compact view of our new listing pages. And this kind of plays into another sort of feature that's on our radar at the moment around the idea that you might want to do some bulk editing from a listing view. So you might be able to edit fields within this view itself. And obviously a more compact view would make that much more, would help facilitate that. So this is where we are with this one so far. I'm going to move on because there's some other things to show you. Next up is our work around content checkers. So a while ago, we started to explore the idea of an interface that can accommodate a panel that helps to give you some guidance on your content as you're editing. So you can see we've got this kind of approach of highlighting parts of the content that you might be able to improve. So initially we were thinking about this idea similar to things like Hemingway or Grammarly, where you get these kind of inline guidance tips. So, you know, these things could have potential integration with things like ChatGPT, for example. So if you want to generate a different version of a sentence inline, you could maybe do that from a panel such as this. And then we got thinking around how you might want to be able to see the quality of your content over time. So obviously this is all concepts, right? But the idea that there's some sort of a spark line or some indicator to show you how iterations you make to your content might be improving that content over time. So we've introduced this. The other thing that's that's around kind of content quality, but there's aspects of content quality, and obviously that's a relatively controversial phrase because what defines quality? But we've also explored things like, could we bring in sustainability checks into this? So for example, if there's recommended number of images on a page, we could flag that to people in a panel. Or as we already have in Wagtail, we have the built-in accessibility checks on the front end, and so that would also be kind of something we want to integrate here. So I guess really it's the beginning of a UI that helps that people can plug content checkers into, really. And we've done some thinking around how much you'd want this to be like interject people and how intrusive it would be, and that's I think we'd have to be really careful around that. But you know, even if someone tries to publish some content before they've opened this panel, maybe there are ways we could gently prompt people to kind of interact with it before they actually publish their content. So, you know, things like a modal that pops up before you publish. And so taking that a little bit further, you know, we have, you know, comments from people on your content as well, right? So there's the built-in comments panel, and we also now do have the automated accessibility checks as well. And you know, maybe they should. There's a question about how maybe we could combine those, right? Maybe human checks as well as automated checks could be combined. We're not saying that yet, but it's something we're exploring. But what's also something that would be really cool and interesting would be on the front end where we already have those accessibility checks built in. It would be great to be able to bring up front, you know, inline comments associated with fields so that people can interact on this view. Like you do in many applications that already exist, right? And add your comments to the front end view and the preview. Or you might want to be able to leave a comment on a particular field. So that's something we've explored. And as part of that, thinking about the user bar. So obviously we have the user bar. This is a mock-up for a slightly alternative version that you know, built into it, we could have a comments panel that pops up here that you could move around. Obviously, we currently have the accessibility warnings panel that's already there. And so just exploring how we can make that more scalable for, you know, so it's easy to plug in, you know, multiple things that suit an organization. So that's pretty exciting. And I think, you know, again, there's a lot more we can explore with that. So great to hear anyone's feedback on ideas around how those things could develop. Right, next up, we've got what we are calling universal search. We've got universal listings, and we're thinking about universal search. So this is really around making things easier to find within Wagtail. So we're exploring, you know, the idea that we could find a way to search everything in Wagtail from anywhere. We do have the search already, but perhaps a more like spotlight style search could be quite cool and quite useful for people. It's a pattern that people are becoming, you know, obviously very used to. So you search for something like bread, and you don't just get pages, you get anything that's got that string in it. And so you might be looking for a specific snippet or maybe an image that you've uploaded and you want to quickly go and find that and edit it. But obviously, there are some issues within Wagtail in terms of when you try and find a piece of content, there could be lots of different versions of that have a very similar name. So meta information is really quite important to help people understand what this content is and what they've actually found, and so they can find the thing they're looking for quickly and not go to the wrong place. So we've explored how we might use different types of meta information to help you on that. So say, for example, you're searching for something with sourdough, maybe it's an image of sourdough you've uploaded. You know, this piece of information here that it's used 30 times might just be enough to help you realize that's the one I want, not that one that is called sourdough 2 that was only used once. And you know, and they have the same kind of issue with different locales where the page names are very similar. But we want to try and find a way to give you those relevant results without having to, you know, go to a search results and then choose a tab for snippets or a tab for images. So it's quick, basically. So yeah, hopefully that's interesting for people as a concept. And then finally, we've been exploring how to make it clear for everybody that there are keyboard shortcuts in Wagtail as our kind of push to become more and more accessible for people, more accessible CMS. So obviously we could remind people that there are shortcuts within a help panel. And essentially, let's bring in a panel of keyboard shortcuts that people can access from anywhere, which is a common pattern with lots of applications. We think this is something that we should do. And I think this could be the tip of the iceberg in terms of helping people to learn it, or, you know, put forward new ideas for much more useful shortcuts and more Wagtail specific shortcuts that, you know, do exist in some areas of the admin, but I think it could be really powerful to really bring in like things like Streamfield manipulation type shortcuts here, so people start to become real power users, and it becomes more accessible as well. So that is all the stuff I was going to show. That's the 4 areas. Over to you, Lisa. We're going to go for a vote.
Yes, we are. So everything that Ben just showed you they're all potential future features. So I'm going to ask you to vote now on your favorites. You can choose more than one. It doesn't mean that they're definitely going to end up in a release, but we just like to see which ones you like, and it's a bit of fun as well. So I'm going to launch it now. So you should be able to vote now for snug mode. So making the view more compact, content checkers, so that you can see alerts for improvements while you're editing, universal search to make things much easier to find, and keyboard shortcuts, the panel to make it much easier to use and make sure that people know that all of those shortcuts are available. So I'll give it a few more seconds while everybody's placing their votes. It's good. Everyone's getting involved. We're nearly at 80% participation, which is good. That's it. Oh, no, we're still going. Okay, 85%. I'm going to end the poll and share it with you. Okay, so the winner is universal search, followed by content checkers, then snug mode, and then keyboard shortcuts panel. And lots of people saying that they would just like them all. Thank you very much. And Thibaut, have you got your details? Thibaut's taking these results and putting them into a screen so that we can share it, so that on the recording we have the results as well. Otherwise it looks a bit weird if you're watching this back as a recording.
Just give me one more second. I'm trying to make it look great as well as showcasing the data, hence why I take a bit of time. But yeah, great results there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Universal search is the winner this time. Back to you, Tom.
We'll pick the hard ones. Thank you, Ben. There's a couple of questions. We've got a question. Can you share the Figma previews? I know the answer to this one.
Definitely. Yeah, that was asked last time. We'll get those up somewhere for everyone to look at. Maybe either on GitHub issues so people can have some comments as well.
That'd be good. And also one from Lucas, which was answered in the Q&A, but I think it's good to just read it out as well. Can the universal listing view be used to filter content in models user modals as well? Very sophisticated question from Lucas. And Sage, I'm going to give that one to you.
Yeah, so for the chooser models, we definitely want to have the new filters there as well. Ben and I just discussed it just this morning, so we're hoping to work on that in the next couple of releases maybe, but definitely in the future.
Thank you, Sage. Thanks for all the feedback, everybody. Okay, we're going to move on to Thibaut.
Thank you, Tom. Right as I take a sip. Okay. I think it's very interesting when we consider those features to realize that we don't develop Wagtail in isolation. It's an open source project, and we definitely listen to what people out there are requesting, and also essentially which features feel compelling enough for us to make a plan to make them happen in the next few releases, as Sage mentioned. And one of those features where we've heard loud and clear where there was interest is managing newsletters on websites. So switching over quickly to Wagtail's own This Week in Wagtail newsletter, it is quite an impactful bit of content for us and a great way to reach our audience. And an ideal world for us, this type of content, we see it as something that you publish across multiple channels. So you write the content once on your site and you have it automatically pushed to both the website version for web users and newsletter version. And that's been part of our vision for Wagtail for quite a bit. So some of you might remember this 2023 vision, which we shared quite a few years ago, where multi-channel experiences was a fundamental part of how we saw Wagtail evolving. Wagtail is really quite a good fit for those types of experiences because of the Django foundations and how flexible it is as a CMS. But we saw a need for the newsletter use case specifically to create a new package that will help this solve in a more like end-to-end polished way. So I'll give you quite a quick demo of what that package might look like. We're looking to start this project for the next few months, thanks to support from the Freedom of the Press Foundation, who are big Wagtail users. So within the CMS, I'm going to go over to one of my blog posts. I'm going to edit it to preview the content as I would for any page on my site. So side by side, I have the content of the web page for my blog post and what it looks like once published. And what this package would involve essentially is having a way to look at the newsletter version of the content, just the same as I would with the web version, all in one together. And then we'd add a new newsletter tab within the Wagtail form for editing, where I'll be able to manage all of the aspects of who the newsletter is getting sent to, how we track that specific campaign, when is it sent, things like that. So for people out there who might be doing this type of work, you might have been doing this with MailChimp, and this kind of interface within MailChimp where you have to configure all of the aspects of the campaign will be very familiar to you. And that's exactly what we're hoping to streamline with this package, where rather than having to do this twice, publish on the site, then design the content and publish via MailChimp, you'll be able to select which audience you want to send the content to and send out the campaign all directly from the CMS. So just to give you a sense of what that might look like, we're very lucky to have our designer Ben here today to look at prototypes with us. And one of the prototypes he's worked on recently is this newsletter experience all in the CMS. Again, with the preview mode, with the email metadata and a way to test email specifically, and with the new tab where I can manage all of the aspects of my campaign. So again, just want to be very clear that it's something that we're very happy to be doing as an open source additional package, thanks to the support of the Freedom of the Press Foundation. It actually is quite unusual for us to be able to do those kinds of open source contributions with a backing sponsor from the get-go. So I can't emphasize enough how incredibly more impactful it would be for us as far as the success of this package and for our community that this is open source thanks to their support from the very beginning. And yeah, if you want to follow the developments of this package, if you're interested in getting this working on your site with MailChimp or otherwise, the best place to check up what's happening would be our Wagtail newsletter repository, where again, it's very early days. There's no code here just yet, but that's where all of the action will be happening.
Thank you very much, Thibaut. And thank you again to Freedom of the Press. I think there may be one or two people from Freedom of the Press on the call. I'd just like to say thank you to you directly for supporting this. A couple of comments coming in. Thibaut, one from Michael. Sorry, I may have missed this, but where are the audiences?
A good question. So at the moment, with this first version of the package for freedom of the press, it'll be a MailChimp integration. So we don't necessarily want to reinvent that at the very beginning. So the idea is to do the email generation with a package called MJML within Wagtail, and then integrate with MailChimp as far as defining which audience you send this to. And then I think in the longer run, the idea is to introduce more backends with things like Campaign Monitor to manage your content marketing audience. And even a bit further ahead, I can definitely see this being something where perhaps for organizations that are quite conscious about data governance, all of the data might be directly within your Wagtail projects. Wagtail is quite well suited to that as well. It just feels like a case where we'll build to later on.
Thanks, Stephen. A couple more. Michael also answering, wondering what flexibility there is in the email template design.
Okay, great question as well. So I skimmed over that quite quickly, but the idea with this project is we're going to reuse very well established email design tool called MJML. Lots of projects out there use MJML because it's quite a good way for people to design email templates in a way that works quite well across lots of email clients. So the idea is you'll be able to reuse from quite an extensive library of templates out there. So that's the plan right now. I could also definitely see it where for people who are comfortable with MailChimp, we might also directly integrate with their template builder, maybe fetch the templates that you defined in MailChimp and inject that Wagtail content within, so you have the benefits of the automation, but with the familiarity of how you design templates there. So yeah, quite flexible, MJML to start with, other options very much on the table.
Thanks, Ivo. Megan just put the link to MJML in the chat for people to see. And maybe one more question for you, Thibaut, from Daniel, who asks, will this be worked on this GSOC? Maybe you just outline what GSOC is for people who aren't familiar.
Yes, GSOC, one of my favorite things that I do as part of Wagtail. So it's a program we take part in with Google. It's an internship program with 3 months of open source internships over the summer. And we participate every year. And we've had excellent projects coming through that, thanks to Google's support and also thanks to all of the people from our community who mentor those projects. So this specific package is not on the cards for GSOC this year. It's a different opportunity, but there'll definitely be work of that nature where you'll produce open source code like a package for Wagtail as part of those types of programs.
Thank you. And just, I said that was the last one, but there's one more in from Michael that we're going to answer now. Thibaut, do you think there'll be an endpoint for the final MJML output rather than sending directly to an integrated sender?
That's a tough question. I honestly think that there's quite a bit of MJML support in the Django ecosystem for that type of scenario. So it could be that something like this is already solved by, say, Django MJML. As far as having it available in Wagtail, it's the kind of thing where it's a strength of Wagtail to be quite flexible. So all those APIs we'll design for this package with MailChimp. The idea is definitely to make it flexible enough that if you have a use case, for example, to sending straight over SMTP, that would work just as well. So I guess the short answer is not something we've considered so far, but definitely something that's the flexibility we usually go for will allow.
Thanks, Thibaut. And I'll just say that there's obviously a lot of enthusiasm and interest and opinion in this, which is great. And like as Thibaut said, because we are in this nice position of starting off on this now, really encourage everyone to get involved by following the roadmap, by raising issues in the repository. We'll send a link again in the follow-up to this webinar, so you should all get that. All right, I think with that, we're going to move on and just let me check the schedule. I think, am I next, Lisa? Was it Megan?
You are, yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, I am going to talk quite briefly about Wagtail AI. We had a webinar just on Wagtail AI a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago, and it was really well attended. So some of you may have been there of that, and in which case you'll know what I'm talking about in the next summary, but then I'll show you a bit about what we're working on. So Wagtail AI is a third-party app. It's one that we're developing actively at Torchbox, but with the help of the community. It's not new default functionality in Wagtail. It's something that you would opt into using by installing it as a third-party app. And importantly, we're piggybacking on the LLM library, which has been open sourced by Simon Willison, which is a sort of abstraction layer over other large language models. So OpenAI's GPT API is of course one of the options, and for many people will be the default option, but it also supports Claude, including the new Claude 3 models, and open source models that you might be hosting yourselves using Ollama or on other infrastructure. And I'll just show you quickly how Wagtail AI works at the moment. So at the moment, the main way you interact with it is through a rich text field. So here is some text with some mistakes. Your built-in browser spell checker might have noticed that one was wrong, but probably not this, because some is spelled correctly here and there's a grammar mistake. So I can select that, choose the wand, and go for AI correction. So that's just making the call to the LLM and with a prompt saying, please fix this. There's also the option for generating content. So if I want to write a short post about kombucha, there's two default prompts, and I'll choose the second one. And it's written out some text for me, most of which I probably won't use, but could be a helpful starter. So just those 2 points themselves are a useful start. But what I want to highlight is how easy it is for you to write your own prompts. So if I go now to settings and then prompts, you should leave the page, and I'm going to add a new prompt. And I'm going to ask it to rewrite the following text using very simple language, which could be understood by a 5-year-old child. The description is explained from 5. And then I choose the method, so whether I want to replace content or append after. In this case, I want to replace. So I'll create my prompt, and I'll go back to that home page. And if I take some text from this my blog post, just in case you don't have time to read it, or you have a 5-year-old who you want to show it to, then post it here, and now use the new prompt, which will take that and rewrite it very simply. And here's the answer. So the ELI 5 might not be useful for you, but hopefully that shows how quickly you could pull together prompts which are relevant for your own use cases. For example, which might be about creating a consistent tone of voice for your content, or rewriting content in British English rather, or American English, or anything else that's more specific to you. So there's a lot of flexibility with what is already available in Wagtail AI, and really encourage you to try out what's there already. But there's also a lot coming up soon, and the best way to keep on track of that is to follow the Wagtail AI project. You can see the roadmap. Actually, these are both private at the moment, but there's no reason for them to be private, so we'll open these up. So you can see some of the things that we're working on now. There's a split between the two backend projects, so Wagtail AI, but also Wagtail Vector Index. I won't get too much into that now, but that's vector indexes are a sort of new type of database which are used very frequently alongside large language models, and they're a way of representing text, but also can be images and other sorts of content in a way that helps you identify similarity. So that actually opens up a lot of interesting use cases on the road. But these two things we're working on side by side. One of these is I can't see the spike I wanted to talk about. Oh, here we go. Alt text generation. This is one that we've made some progress on recently. I'm going to show you the quickest way of showing you this is with a Loom from my colleague Alex. So he's adding an image, dragging an image in the usual way, presses the wand icon, and the title of the image is replaced quickly with a beagle dog curled up, lying on a blue blanket. Here's an image which will be familiar to you if you've used Wagtail Bakery, Snowcap Mountain. So pretty simple, that went rather quickly. That's pretty simple functionality, but something that I think is really nicely integrated in a way that will feel hopefully familiar and natural to people who are working with images already in Wagtail, and is something that is easy to switch on if you've enabled the Wagtail AI package. So that's a pretty whistle-stop tour of where we are with Wagtail and a brief glimpse of what's coming up with Wagtail AI. I mean, like I said, it's a pretty active area of progress and development at the moment, and as with the email sending package, somewhere where we are really interested in your feedback and opinions and contributions. So I hope you'll firstly try it out. It's really simple to install and start using now, and secondly, let us know how we can make it better. I have seen some questions pop up here. Don't know if there's anything.
There's a couple, Tom. So we have got, would it be possible to opt into some AI features and not all? There's one question from Trish.
Yes. So firstly, you can, if you didn't want to have any of those prompts that I showed, you can just remove all the prompts and not have them available to your editors. Secondly, on, for example, on the image alt generation, that requires the use of what's referred to as a multimodal model, lots of M's in there. But you don't have to use a multimodal model. You could use a text generation model and not supply a multimodal model. At the moment, there's, I guess, two main commercial ones, the GPT and Claude, and the main open source one is called Lava, double L at the start. But yeah, absolutely, you could choose not to use that. And actually, there's a bit of a question that's happening in the group working on at the moment, is how flexible we want to make that, and it's a trade-off really between flexibility on the one hand and simplicity on the other. But yeah, for sure, right now you can choose which bits you want to use.
I think that should answer Stephen's question as well. Can the prompts be tied to different modals? I think that's what you're talking about. Is
well, not quite. I mean, the text prompts can't actually at the moment. So the expectation is that you would, the way it's set up at the moment is that you choose a single LLM to handle the text prompt. So that's a level of flexibility that we hadn't anticipated, but be interested to hear from you, Stephen, or anyone else, if there's some compelling reasons why we should consider that.
And is there a way Wagtail AI could be used to decide page themes, create models based on prompts with specific fields?
I'm not sure I can quite imagine that, but if I can, then I think that sounds sort of within the bounds of what we're working on. Yeah, actually, no, I'm not going to answer that completely because I'm not convinced, Neeraj, that I've completely understood your question, but I will message you in chat and see if I can work it out.
Okay, I think that's all of them. Okay, and so now I think Megan is going to give us an update on Wagtail Space.
All right, folks. First of all, everybody on this call is invited to Wagtail Space. We're having 2 in-person events coming up in June 2024. The first one is going to be June 12th through the 14th in Arnhem, the Netherlands. Our friends at 4 Digits are hosting that event. And you can definitely, they're going to be doing 2 days of sprints and then 1 day of talks. Quick heads up though, the Eagles are apparently playing the night before the talk day. So the hotel's situation has gotten a little bit more tricky, but fortunately Martin has posted some pro tips on how to find a good hotel despite that situation on the website. We also have June 20th through the 22nd, our Wagtail Space US in Philadelphia. We'd love to see all your faces there. We are going to be doing 2 days of talks for that one, followed by 1 day of sprints. And it's going to be a really fun time. I hope to see everybody there. But with that being said, we're also looking for talks for Wagtail Space US. Wagtail Space Netherlands still has 1 slot open. So if you have a real barn burner of a talk to share, you can definitely still email them. And so the type of talks that we're looking for Wagtail Space US, we're looking for things on like doing good with Wagtail in the world. What are you doing with Wagtail? We want to find out what sort of things are happening with Wagtail. We're also interested in talking about accessibility, sustainability. We're curious to, like, if anybody has any insights on what editors want. And also, of course, we always welcome like code innovations and neat projects that you're playing around with. Honestly, anything unique that you have to talk about Wagtail, we want to hear about it. We also want to make clear that we're definitely encouraging first-timers and people from underrepresented backgrounds to come talk. If you're nervous about speaking for the first time, or you want some feedback before you submit, or just somebody to talk to, we are doing a speaker mentorship program for Wagtail Space US. You can email hello@wagtail.org to request a mentor for that. The deadline for proposals is April 22nd, 2024. And I will go ahead and throw the links to our websites in the chat after I'm done sharing here. But please submit your talks, come to our events. We'd love to meet you.
Thank you, Megan. I really hope we do see lots of you there, either or both, in Arnhem and Philadelphia. Otherwise, I think that is it for us all today. We are finishing just a couple of minutes early, but we really appreciate you all coming along and listening to us tell you about what's new in Wagtail. I hope to see you again in maybe about 3 months. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you to all our speakers as well. Thanks, everybody. And we will send you a follow-up email with all of the details.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for the feedback.